My name is Ravinder Singh, and I'm connecting with you from Columbus, Ohio. And it is my privilege to be the moderator for this session. We started at a very logical place to begin, which is what we refer to as the Mool Mantra. Although some people have argued with me that the Guruji never really called it Mool Mantra, but be that as it may. That is the logical place to begin. And we started out with a discussion of the Mool Mantra as we understand it. And we started out by laying the context. Essentially, I'm going to read out a few points that I made notes on what we all kind of converged on. So I think we all agreed that Ikwankar was Guru Nanak's original term, that this was not a restatement of the old idea of the Hindu Trinity, that this was certainly in Naveen Shabad hai ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਇਸकी discussion ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ. And we refer to this text as Mool, that was the second point, Mool Mantra, meaning foundational or root. So ਸਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਜੋ ਹੈ, it is in fact a commentary on this Mool Mantra. So if you in fact were to focus on just the alphanumeric that Guru Nanak has introduced, which is kind of a unique thing, we did talk a little bit about whether this numeral 1 meant the number 1, or was this a signifier of something else. I think the conclusion that we came to was that it doesn't lend itself to the idea of the numeral 1, but is in fact a noun referring to distance. The conclusion there again was that Ik Oankar in itself is the essence of Gurbani and its message, and the rest of Gurbani is simply a commentary on it. And then we proceeded on in the discussion, which is intertwined with the discussion, we proceeded on to ask the question, well, what does it really mean to me individually? Because like a lot of others, I too have struggled through a lifetime of trying to relate the message to my daily existence. Because it has to have meaning and guidance for an individual's daily existence. How do I do things? How do I live my day? I mean, does it have anything to say to me about, how to make choices and so on? So how does it inform my life? So a lot of these participants went around and talked about what it meant to them, how they've experienced looking at the Mool Mantra over the course of their lives, what it has meant earlier, what it has meant to them as they have matured. And there was one very interesting point made, which I have made a special note of, and that was, Mool Mantra di gal kar rahe sain, there was an observation made कि तीसरे पातशाह ने has reminded us कि मन की ज्योत स्वरूप है अपना मूल पहचान. And that was a very interesting point, at least to me, so I made a note of it to share it with you. Because ਇੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਮੂਲ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ पे ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ. ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਤੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੂਲ ਪਛਾਣ, ਆਪਣਾ authentic nature ਪਛਾਣ, ਆਪਣੇ root ਨੂੰ ਪਛਾਣ ਕਿ ਤੇਰਾ true nature ਹੈ ਕੀ ਹੈ. And then here we have a series of affirmations at the very outset. We referred to the Mool Mantra also as a series of affirmations. कि ਇਹ ਤੇਰਾ ਮੂਲ ਹੈ. So, if you put two and two together, for an individual like me, it becomes logical to think of the Mool Mantra as being my potential, what I ought to become. ये मेरी संभावना है. Because, जो बंदा है, it's work in progress. You're kind of a bridge between animals and, God, if you will. So we are work in progress. And looking at it, the way I saw it was, ਇਹ ਮੇਰੀ ਸੰਭਾਵਨਾ ਬਣ ਗਈ. This is where I ought to go to. ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਦੀ. ਸੋ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਵਧੇਕ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਕੋਈ ਆਪਣਾ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਦੇਣਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ you're welcome. But this is where we stopped the last time, and I just brought this back for your benefit, for the benefit of those who have actually joined this time.
The question here, if Harvinder Viji is recording it as well?
हाँ जी, we
Oh,
record
you
कर रहे
are
हैं.
now?
Yeah, well, this is Rahul. My perhaps heretical opinion in the context of this group, place where Guru Granth Sahib begins, in some sense, in terms of how we should respond ethically, for me is Guru Nanak's beautiful question, Kiv Satyara Hoye. And, Mool Mantra and all of these other things are invocations, invoking the divine power, invoking the divine grace. But the rest of Gurbani, in my humble opinion and heretical opinion, clearly, is the answer to the question that gives Satyara Hoya. That's where Guru Nanak's philosophy begins. Now, just to clarify, if we take my perspective, then the number one, it doesn't show up in some of the early pothis. But you have dismissed the idea, so I won't bring it up again. But that's since we're sharing opinions, that's my opinion based on reading the scholarship.
But I would like to just respond to Rahul Ji. The relationship of it like you're saying, it doesn't show up there. That's also understandable, right? As long as we see that the Omkar is written in the right perspective, the Eka has a very sublime and very powerful meaning. As long as we see that before Satnam, there is what Guru Nanak contributed uniquely to the human knowledge, to the mankind, and it's so beautiful ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਸਮਝ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਏਕਾ ਲਿਖ ਕੇ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਪਾਉਨੇ ਆ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਐਕਡੈਮਿਕਲੀ ਉਹ ਏਕਾ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ even then we can draw out an equation which will necessitate that eka. So logically if we pursue it scholarshiply agar ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ explore ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਵੀ ਉਹ eka ਬਣੂਗਾ ਹੀ ਬਣੂਗਾ. That's how the word omkar is written, the second part of that eka which complements each other. So we can derive that eka without deriving, even if only omkar is written, the one is derived from it exactly, and we can do it logically in step by step, which should be acceptable to everyone, even if it is, as you are saying, it is not appearing in some of the pothis or whatever.
So I commend you for that beautiful aesthetic explanation. That's very beautiful.
I'm going to turn to the rest of the group and ask them if anybody wants to add to this discussion, this particular point. Okay. I just want to amplify a little bit. Since I'm the moderator, I get that, but I'm also a participant and an eager one at that. So the way, so Rahuldeep, I mean, what you say is certainly not heretical at all. I mean, that is the foundational question. Kiv Satyara Hoye. But it is really addressing, it is addressing, as Charanveerji says, the Ek Onkar. Now, when I look at the Ek Onkar, what it tells me is, and to Charanveerji's exposition, that Guru Nanak has given us a very unique way of looking at the world. He's actually shifted our paradigm. So he's saying Ek Onkar. To me, that means he's postulating just one God. And that one God is not a Hindu God, a Jewish God, a Sikh God, one God. Absolutely. And one God pervades the universe. So to me, from the way I see it, it pervades the universe, it's homogenized in the universe. Just like milk is, butter is homogenized in milk. Okay, and flint is homogenized in wood. In fact, there is a book in Bani that doesn't come to me now, but it does talk about, how flint is homogenized. So to me, what it tells me is there's no difference between creation and the creator. Because only asan da ke vich baitha hoya. What that means to me as a Sikh individually is that my life must reflect this integration. कि मेरा जीवन ही अखंड होना चाहिए. मतलब जो मैं कह रहा और जो मैं जी रहा वो बिल्कुल सिमेट्रिकल होना चाहिए. ये नहीं कि मैं कहना कुछ पिया तो मैं जीवना किसी और तरह पिया. तो जीवन मेरा भी अखंड होना चाहिए. That to me is the meaning of Ek Onkar. Now, Gurinder Maan and Peshawar Singh and whoever, it's okay to do a textual analysis of these things. But my point is, what does it mean to me as an ordinary practicing Sikh? That is how I'm trying to mold my life. You see my point? But the question you raised, is part of this narrative. That is foundational, not heretical at all. Thank you for giving me the minute, but is there any other discussion here?
I think आपको आगे चल सकते हैं जी.
ठीक है जी. So ਅਸੀਂ ਏਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਦੀ, do we agree then we've kind of exhausted, at least within this context, it's never exhausted, discussion on ਏਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ, and perhaps we should move on to Satnam. Agreed? So जी Satnam ਤੇ ਚੱਲੀਏ ਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਵੀ ਕੰਟੈਕਸਟ ਸੈੱਟ ਕਰ ਲਈਏ. ਹੁਣ ਇੱਕ ਆਮ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟਰਮੀਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਰਡਸ ਨੇ ਦੇ ਪੇਅਰਡ ਵਰਡਸ, ਜੋਟੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਨੇ. ਸੋ ਸਤ ਤੇ ਨਾਮ go together. At least that's what I've understood. Even though there might be separate meanings. So Satnam here again, Naam, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾਨਕ ਕੇ ਘਰ ਕੇਵਲ ਨਾਮ. I mean, I have translated this somewhere as Naam being the central fixture in Nanak's home. But Naam comes wrapped in multi-layered meanings within Gurbani. I mean, it's used as the creator, it's used as a methodology, it's used in many different nuances, and I think I would just put it out there. And to me, we need to be cognizant of all the different shades and nuances that it has been used in. So with that, I'm going to open this discussion up on Satnam, and I would reach out to Harpreet and Rahul again to really set the context for us. So Harpreet, do you want to go first? पार की कर ले यार किधरे.
ये ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਵੀ म्यूट है गए हो.
ਹੁਣ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਮੇਰੀ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਹੁਣ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ.
ਅੱਛਾ ਜੀ.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਹੁਣ ਆ ਰਹੀ.
ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਦੋ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਨੇ, ਸਤ ਤੇ ਨਾਮ. ਤੇ ਸਤ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਐਡਜੈਕਟਿਵ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡਿਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਨਾ ਕਿਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਹੈ. ਤੇ ਨਾਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਡੂੰਘਾਈ ਹੈ. ਤੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇਮ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਮਿਸਲੀਡਿੰਗ ਹੈ. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਸਾ ਕੀ ਵਾਰ ਚ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਨਾਮ ਦੀ ਪਰਿਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟਿਵ ਫੋਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਦੁਨੀਆ, ਇਹ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਚਲਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ. ਤੇ ਉਹ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਾਂਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਦੀ ਇਮਨੈਂਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਨਾਮ ਦੀ, ਉਹ ਇਹ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਰਿਫਲੈਕਟਡ ਹੈ. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਨਾਮ ਦੀ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ, ਇੱਕ ਨਾਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਸ-ਪਾਸ ਹੈ. ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪੀ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਸਾਜਿਓ, ਆਪੀ ਨੇ ਰਚਿਓ ਨਾਓ, ਇੱਕ ਸਾਜੀ ਹੈ ਕਰ ਆਸਨ ਡਿਠੋ ਚਾਓ. ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ, ਸੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਗਰ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਸੀ ਗਹਿਰਾਈ ਨਾਲ ਵੇਖੀਏ ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਬੜੇ ਬਣਦੇ ਨੇ. ਤੇ I'll end there and maybe Rahuldeep can chime in.
Yeah, this is Rahuldeep. So the other side of that is from the human perspective. From the human perspective, Nam is to be enacted, as you said before. Somebody said that there's not to be any division between belief and practice. And so Nam is there as a principle in the universe. And for me, what's important as a Sikh is that Nam, from my perspective, is the entire ethical response that I have towards the divine principle, right, in my life. So from the human perspective, Nam is about ethics. Nam is about working. Nam is about being with people. Nam is about being with the lowest of people. It's not just something we do in our houses with the eyes closed and with this mantra system. It's living in the world in a conscious way.
Thank you, Raul. Anji, who would like to add in on this, or at least take this discussion forward? I open it up to the rest of the group.
It's pretty tricky when we say that Naam is not the mantra type, because I personally feel that there is a primary identity which this Mool Mantra, as Vinderji was saying, and everybody has that basic understanding of our primary identity, Mool Jot Swaroop ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸਾਰੇ. Now language ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਸਕਦੇ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸਕਾਲਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਸੁੱਟ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਓਪੀਨੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. ਲੇਕਿਨ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਵਿਲੱਖਣਤਾ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ, ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਦਿਸਦੀ ਪਈ ਹੈ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ, but it is beyond the language, and that is what Naam Bani is. So there is a difference between English, Hindi or any other language, Hebrew, Greek, you call it any language. But ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ, when they start as a language, they have a divine origin. You talk about Latin, it has a divine origin, and then it becomes a vague or a vulgar language later on. So ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਨੁੱਖਤਾ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਐਸ ਡੇਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ is the purest form of language which we can have, and the more we go vague from it, we will realize that ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ secondary identity ਬਣਾ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ. Otherwise ਨਾਮ ਬਾਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਹੈ, from ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ to the end, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ, ਜਿੱਥੇ I'm just missing the last love, tera kita jato nahi, that's where it ends, or I don't know, that's again a controversial, but let's keep it that way. ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੂਲ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਮੂਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਨਵਿਜ਼ੀਬਲ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਮੂਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ different forms ਵਿੱਚ ਆਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ, then we have to have some kind of meditativeness through the Naam Bani, and mantra ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, that is to me is swimming with the Bani. Man tare, our mind when swims with Naam Bani, and that happens only when we really contemplate. Nothing to laugh on it. It's a very important Vaheguru mantra which we say is a very powerful blessing to us. Scholarship, I can definitely argue with them that they are more on the vague or the reformed form of Gurbani, because they are using Punjabi as their base language or English as a base language to argue about Naam Bani. Naam Bani, when done purely with the Naam Bani, when Gurbani opens with Gurbani, then it's the purest form. Try that and you will understand the meaning of Naam Bani and Naam, that it requires a repeated recitation, it requires a repeated contemplation, it requires a repeated connection with that invisible, which is the foundation. Naam har cheez da aadhar hai. How will I connect it? So that's just a take on it.
And unless we repeat it, it doesn't go inside our subconsciousness. That's what we need.
Absolutely. Where that mool is, where that primary identity exists in us, that is the mool, where we have to go and read to understand what that mool is.
ठीक है जी. Some very interesting points. I want some others to chime in here. I don't hear anyone.
I actually have a question. This is Amit Singh.
Anji.
There was a really good point made about how repetition helps it stick. But my question or challenge for that is, repetition without understanding might not.
I agree.
It might be super.
So before we go there, appreciate your question. I'm sorry, I can't catch your name, or I missed it somehow.
Yeah, it's Amit Singh.
Amit, thanks for your question. Before we will head down that direction. When I opened up this discussion, one of the points I made was that, at least in my understanding, the term Naam has been used variously in Gurbani. the term Naam has also come to mean different things to us. So one of the very popular use of Naam is what you are referring to, repetition of some word or repetition of some kind. Naam japo, je kisi nu tusi kende ho, the majority of us would sort of interpret that to mean Vaheguru the Naam japo, which means repetition. That is one way we understand this term. But to my way of looking at Gurbani is that it also stands for God's creative intent and God's creativity, creation. Because Asadi I think Harpreet referred to that, Aapi ne aap sajiyo. So we've got to understand कि ये ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ। ਸੋ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਜਿਆ, ਆਪੀ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਸਾਜਿਓ, ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਨਾਮ ਸਾਜਿਆ। So the way I see it is, this is his blueprint. This is the bridge between him as Nirgun and the bridge to the creation that we live in. So a blueprint है ਉਹਦਾ। So me as a human, as a Sikh and as a human being, a creative intent ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਦੀ, ਇਹ ਇਹਦੇ creation ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਚਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਹੈ। So the question for me, from a Sikhi perspective, becomes, मैं इस creative intent ਨਾਲ, ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿਰਜਣਾਤਮਕ force ਹੈ, ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ connect ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੋਵਾਂ? Connect ਹੋਣ ਦਾ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਹੋਣਾ ਔਰ ਮਨਮਤ ਛੱਡਣਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ we are living within the containers of our egos and we are in some ways shut off from this, from the full potential of Naam. So I would think that it is God's creative intent that we need to connect to at a very broad level. And I think Rahul had alluded to that, my ethical response to the world around me. But I also believe that it also refers to a practice that has become very common. Now we could argue that is this practice of repetition something that is prescribed to us, or is this something that we have taken over as a cultural hangover? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but the fact of the matter is that there are innumerable practices. कई विधियां ने, अपने मन ਨੂੰ रोकन दी. And one of them happens to be Vaheguru ਦਾ ਜਾਪ ਕਰ ਲੈਣਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ word ਦਾ ਜਾਪ ਕਰ ਲੈਣਾ. It becomes to me an exercise that suits some people and doesn't suit others. But I think the real issue here is, how do I connect to that creativity that is all around me and that intelligence that is all around me and in me? But yeah, I would like to open up a little bit. I'm trying to divert this into another direction, but that's how I see Naam.
Whatever has been put across to us in the form of, or as Moola Mantra so far, if you see the meanings that are given to it, look at the Almighty as a person, as it comes later on, Satnam, Nirbhav, Nirvair, Akal Murat. And that is how the thinking has been put across. Let's start from the beginning. You say Ik, Omkar. Omkar is an expression which has been used in the Hindu scriptures for the deities, for whatever they thought was worshipping. But Guru Nanak added the numeral 1 to it to say no. You say there are 36 crore gods. You say there is a trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. No. It is simple unity and there is no unity. That is Ik, Omkar, Akar. That is, it's a being. It is a physical coverage. You come to Sat, Ram. Everywhere, when we read, in fact, we think the translation that we posted here also says his name is truth. No. Naam, what is Naam? In Gurbani, Guru Nanak Sahib says, Eko Naam Hukum hai. Nanak Satgur Diya Budhai Diyo. Naam is Hukum. But how is Naam is Hukum? What is it then? If it is Hukum, then why are we asked to, if it is Hukum, That is, we are asked to remember. Now, you have gone on to Simran, as somebody mentioned just now, to say that you start reciting Vaheguru, 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 and think you're doing Ram Simran. No. What is Simran? Simran is something that we know. Simran, the meaning of Simran is to recall, to remember what has been known to us, but we may have forgotten or lost sight of. That is this is what, and Guru Nanak, Manchi Pasha, and Panjਵੇਂ Pasha, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਬੜੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਊਹਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਤੁਮਾਰਾ ਸੁਣੀਏ ਈਹਾਂ ਹਰ ਜਸ ਤੇਰਾ ਪੜੀਏ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਜਿਸ ਵਕਤ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਲੀ ਜਿਸ ਵਕਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਤਮਾ ਹੈ the soul it took a physical form, it was given instructions to say what you have been sent to take birth for. That is the hukum, that is the purpose for which the soul takes the birth. And you know, Sire Sir Tande Laya, and expressions like this throughout Gurbani, they are abundant. So then you say, Iha Uma Hukum Tumara Suniye, Iha ਹਰ ਜਸ ਤੇਰਾ ਪੜੀਏ ਇਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਜਸ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਦੀ ਪਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ we have to say it, we have to remember it. What it means is that we have to acknowledge what you have told us then, remember it, and go about complying with it. So this is Naam. Naam is, and when we say Sat, Naam, Sat means it is the truth, the universal truth. It is true today and should continue to be true. So that is the hukum is inviolable. That is Sat Naam. If we have a look at the short form of it, which is put across always, is that Ik Onkar Sat Gur Prasad. Somehow Sat is always linked with Gur Prasad. But in the original Mood Mantra, we always say Ik Onkar Sat Naam. So Sat is the truth. Sat is the universal truth. It is something that is always has been there and will always be there. Father such, Dugad such, Happy such, Nanak Hosi be such. So Naam is what was told to the soul before coming, and the soul is to remember. Now when we say Naam ke dhare sagle jant, Naam ke dhare khand brahmand, Naam ke dhare Surat Be Quran, all this what it means is that everything that moves here is according to the commands as to the whatever the Almighty Creator wanted, what desired. Now this other dimension to it.
Anthony, thank you very much. I want to give some other people a chance to chime in. Thank you. Appreciate your thought. Anybody else wants to?
This is Gagandeep Singh, and it says, नाम प्रेम है कोई कर लवे किस वेले कर लवे किस तरीके नाल कर लवे हाँ प्रेम दे अर्थ उसनों पता होने चाहिए ਹਨ नाम रजा है नाम विच जिन्याहियत नहीं नाम विच उजर नहीं बहाना नहीं हर वक्त प्यार विच जुड़िया रहे तो ही परवान है नाम अपनी अनहोंद तो ये सारियां दी होंद दा यकीन है लाड़ विच सारियां नाल अपना आप गवा के ही स्वाद दा चाह है नाम नू हद विच कीलिया नहीं जा सकदा बेअंत वाहिगुरु दा नाम बेअंत है हद विच लैन वाला अपनी हद वेखता है वो कह नहीं जाता कि बेअंत है नाम मन दा सौदा है इसका एनालिसिस करना बेसमझी है ये सारा कुछ कह के भी मैं ये नहीं कह सकता कि नाम की है क्योंकि मैं नाम नू अपनी आकड़ भरी दुनिया की पढ़ाई ना समझना चाहता हाँ मैं समझदा हाँ कि मेरे बगैर होर किसी नू ठीक गल पता नहीं लग सकती आप मोह माया के दायरे विच फसिया होया हाँ मर मिटना ते लोक लाज तो बचना मेरे लिए नामुमकिन है इसलिए मैं नाम नू सस्ता समझ के रट जही सच लैंदा हाँ नाम बानी गुरमत है प्रेम सब नाम है नाम प्रभु दा कीर्तन है नाम वाहिगुरु दी याद है नाम विचों आपा गवाना है मर के जीवना है बाणी नाम बजांदी है नाम प्रभु कीर्ति दा चाह पैदा करता है प्रभु कीर्ति अपना आप मटाने विच मदद करती है
हाँ जी
हाँ जी
ਮਿਹਰਬਾਨੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਟ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਅਲੱਗ thought processes ਨੇ which will I think we will at some point touch on. I just want to add a comment here कि HK ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਨਾਮ ਹੁਕਮ ਹੈ, ਨਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਇਵਾਚੀ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਵਰਤਿਆ ਗਿਆ, synonymous with ਸ਼ਬਦ as well. And to me, ਸ਼ਬਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਜੋੜਦਾ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ. That's a way for us to sort of create this world that we are in. But ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ, I want to again circle back to the participants and ask them if they want to add anything else, some other question.
No, I was disrupted when I was talking about Naam.
I do want to remind you that we have to try and stay within a minute or two, as far as possible.
No, I just to quote one thing from Gurbani to say that आयो सुन पढ़ को बानी नाम विसार लगे अनलालच बिता जन्म पुरानी. So what Bhai Sahib just now said is all covered in this particular aspect to say that we came नाम दे नाल लैके सी आए हैं, and नाम लैके सी आए बस उसको भूल के, and because we got attached to the temptations in the world play, we've forgotten and we need to be reminded. So naam jada hai वे, everything is covered by naam. It is not say कि मैंने किसी ने नाम जपना है, मैं किस तरह नाम. I'm afraid naam japna as a mantra is anti-Sikh. There is no place for mantra jap in Sikhi absolutely anywhere in Gurbani. Please have a look. Although this become a practice, because only thing about mantra Gurbani says is कि यतु तुष्टा मेहरमान का गुर का मंत्र कमाए. Mantra in Gurbani means the hukum of the Guru, the instructions given by the Guru, and it is not just to recite something as a mantra.
Ji, thank you. I appreciate the thought. Anybody else? I don't want to move on until we've exhausted people on the panel to speak.
I just want to say something for all those who first of all, let me comment on Amit Singhji's perspective. Yes, I agree with him that we need to understand it also. Now, from here, my next thread goes to, if I have read the entire Guru Granth Sahib, or I have contemplated, reflected upon Gurbani, and I have not been able to single out, narrow it down to something which is quintessential, which is very basis of the whole Guru Granth Sahib, and that's the Naam, and that's my Jot Swaroop, and that's the Mool Mantra, right? If that has not happened, then I think we will never understand what is the importance of reciting Vaheguru Mantra. We will never understand it, period. Why? Because when I go to my Mool Roop, that has no form. So how would I connect? That's the question we should ask ourselves. How will I connect with that invisible, who is present, who is drenched everywhere, in everything we see? And then we answer to ourselves, that's our Jot Swaroop. So how can I connect with that Jot Swaroop? By losing my secondary identity, which I have acquired through language. मैनू मेरा नाम किन्ने दिता? तेरा नाम चरण है, मेरे माँ प्यो आ ने, मेरा आला दुआला आ है. This is all my secondary identity. The moment I start trashing, coming out of the layers after layer of this dynamically created identity through the language, only then I'll come closer to what is my original Mool Roop identity that is described by Guru Nanak so uniquely in the Mool Mantra, which is the topic of today's discussion also. So when I go from my secondary identity, which is a language born, to the primary identity, which is eternal, I have to connect with some way. And that is what Gur Prasad means to me. What is from the primal beginning as the Ad, I have to connect it. Persona hai usnu mein. Us Gur nu persona hai. ਜਦੋਂ मैं उस गुर ਨੂੰ ਪਰਸਨ ਵੱਲ ਜਾਣਾ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਮੂੰਹੋਂ ਕੇਵਲ ਔਰ ਕੇਵਲ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਕੁਝ ਨਿਕਲ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ. So it's okay wherever everybody is, and this is the purpose of these discussions also, to come more closer to that mool identity, the primary identity or the seed identity which we all are, as a from where it all manifests. And that's where Guru Nanak connects us. And that's where Guru Nanak connects us to the Mool Mantra. Recite it. If you don't want to recite the whole Vaheguru in amazement, just recite the whole mantra time and again, and you will come closer. It's my perspective. One would come closer. One would come closer to that Mool identity which we are all trying to discuss. Sorry, I took long.
Thank you, Charanveerji, for a somewhat different perspective on things, and certainly a very interesting one. And just to repeat what you've said, we all have perspectives, and we all have opinions, and we all have experiences that inform and shape how we think and how we look at the world and how we interpret Gurbani for that matter. And I think that is what makes a discussion and a dialogue like this interesting. Because as I hear you speak, I am learning so much, and my hope is that everybody else is, and that is the point of getting together, is to actually grow and grow in our experience. I have the time now at 1:08, and I see that some people are having to leave. It may be a good time perhaps to stop, because Naam is inexhaustible, and so we could talk about this forever till the cows come home, for that matter, and never really. We understand that. So may I, with your permission, then just stop at this point, Harvinder, and give 5 minutes back. We've had a discussion of over an hour.
Sure.
And this is ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਜੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੋਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਤਿਹ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ